Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. In this video we'll be making this blouse. Is a different type of halter neck. If this is something you like, stay tuned. Also, if you're just seeing this face for the first time, please don't make it your last. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified whenever I make a new post. And to my returning subscribers, thank you very much. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll be notified whenever I make a new post. Thank you. These are the materials we'll be using to make this blouse. I have my Ankara, my lining, and my sewing materials. I'll be using a pattern paper for this style, and the first thing to do is to draw my shoulder line. After drawing my shoulder line, I'll go ahead and label it SL. Then from my shoulder line, I'll be taking my bust point measurement, which is 10 inches. I'll mark that point. I'll also mark it on the other end of this pattern paper just to achieve a straight line. I'll take my pattern master and rule a line across, and this line will serve as my bust point. The next thing to do is from my shoulder line, I'll be taking my under bust, which is 13 inches. I'll mark the point on both sides of the paper. Then I'm going to be taking my waistline, which is 16 inches. I'll also be marking a point on the other side of the paper. The next thing is to take the full length of this blouse. I want this blouse to be 20 inches. I'll take my pattern master and rule a line across all the points that have been made. After ruling the lines, I will label them. This is my bust point. Right underneath it is the under bust line. This is my half length, that's my waistline, and this is the blouse length. Now I'll go to my shoulder line, and then I'll take my shoulder measurement, which is 7.5 inches. After taking my shoulder measurement, the next thing to take is my neck measurement. So I'll be using 3 by 3, which is 3 inches for the width and 3 inches for the depth. After marking the point, I'll use my curve to give it a nice curve. Now the next thing to do is to get my chest line, and to get this you divide your bust measurement by 6 and add 1.5. Mine is 8 inches. I'll be marking this point and using my ruler to rule a line across. And this line will be labeled my chest line. On my chest line, I'll be marking my shoulder measurement. So this is me marking 7.5 inches. I'll then use my ruler to connect the shoulder line to the chest line, just like you see me doing. I'll go ahead and take my shoulder slope, which is going down by 1 inch, just like you're seeing me do, and then connecting that line to my neckline, just like so. The next step is to get your armhole curve. And to do this, you take your bust circumference divided by 4 and you mark whatever the figure is on your chest line. Mine is 9.25. Now, on the armhole line, you take the midpoint, just like so. You mark the midpoint and then you go in by 1/2 inch and mark a point there. The next thing to do is to connect the 3 points together using your curve or your freehand. Now to get my dart leg, I'm going to be taking my bust pan, which is also called my nipple to nipple measurement, 4 inches. After marking the 4 inches, I'm going to be using a ruler to connect the lines together, just like so. And then I'll go to my waistline and I'm going to go out by 1/2 inch on both sides. Then I'll connect the point to my bust point, just like so. Then you're also going to connect it to the bottom line, just like this, to create your dart leg. The next thing to do is to take the midpoint of what's left of my shoulder, just like you see me doing. I'll take the midpoint, mark a point there to indicate, and then I'll use my ruler to connect that line to my bust point line, just like this. After doing that, I'll come to my waistline, and then I'll be going out by 1/4 inch on both sides. If you are on the busty side, you might choose to go in by 1/2 inch, but me, I'll be going in by 1/4 inch. So I'll connect this 1/4 inch to my under bust line using a straight line, just like you see me doing. I'll do that for both sides. Then I'll use my curve to connect this to my bust point. It doesn't have to be very curvy, just like so. I'll do the same thing for the other side. I'll connect the line to the bust point. Yep. Then on my chest line, I'm going to be going out by 1/2 inch on both sides, just to give it a little bit of tightening around that area. After that, I'll connect that 1/4 inch to the lower dart leg, just like so, and we have our darts for this style. Now, to get my sweetheart neckline, I decided that the chest line was a little bit too low, so I went up by 1 inch. So I'll be able to deepen it a little bit and still keep it decent enough. So from that 1 inch that I went up, I'm just going to be connecting it to my chest line in a slant curve to give me a sweetheart neckline. So after using my free hand to just get what I want, I decided to go in with my curve just to smoothen it out. Now, on my side front, I'm also going to come up by 1 inch, and then I'm going to use my curve rule and just slant it into the armhole line, just like so. The next thing to do is to take my full body measurement. So this is me checking what I remove for the dart. I'm going to be adding it back, which is 1 inch. Then I'm going to be adding my allowance of 1.5 inch. Then I'm going to come to my waistline. I'm going to take my waist circumference divided by 4, which is 7 inches. After marking the point, after marking my 7 inches, I'm going to take whatever it is I have on my dart leg, just so I'll replace it. I'll mark it here, and then I'll be adding my allowance of 1.5 inch. I'll move over to the full length of this blouse, and then I'll be taking my hip measurement on this line, which is 10.5 inches, and then I'm going to be adding my sewing allowance, which is 1.5 inch. I'm going to be getting a ruler to connect all my points together. So this is how I'm going to be connecting the points together from my waistline to my chest line, like so, and then I'll connect from my waistline to my blouse length. I'm just trying to smoothen this out because we don't want any sharp lines. After that, I'm just going to be connecting this point like so to get my yoke. Now for the bottom of this top, I'm just going to be going up by 1 inch, and then I'm going to smoothen it into the blouse length like so, just to avoid sharp lines. Now I'll go ahead and cut out on the lines. But before I continue cutting, I'm going to be using my marker to mark out the point we are going to be cutting out, just so this wouldn't be confusing for anyone. So all the marked points are the point that will be cut out. Now, after cutting the marked point out, this is exactly what I have. I'll set the body aside and cut out the yoke. So to get the yoke like the thumbnail, I've just gone to look at it. I'm going to be going in here by half an inch so that when I open it up, it's going to be 1 inch. And then on the shoulder line, I wanted to use 3 inches, but I decided against it and I went for 2.5 inches instead. So after marking 2.5 inch on the shoulder line, I'm going to be connecting the shoulder line to the half an inch that I marked. So I was struggling to connect these lines for whatever reason. I don't know. It was so hard to connect. I tried to I tried different angles just to see which one worked the best, but at the end I like to think that I was able to get a position that worked. So this is me just trying to connect it gently. This is what it looks like. I wasn't very comfortable with it, so I tried to take it in a little bit as I was cutting it out. You see me taking it just a little bit in, but I'm still going to make sure it meets at the 2.5 point. So at the end, this is exactly what I got for my outer neck. So after cutting the yoke out to what I want, this is exactly what it looks like. So I just placed all of them together. This is the center front, this is the side front. Don't forget the center front will be cut on fold, and also the yoke will also be cut on fold. Now that'll be all for the front part of the blouse. So for the back, the difference between the front and the back first is the allowance, the zip allowance. So I'm going to be marking 1.5 inch because that's what I want to use for my zip allowance, to from the top to the bottom of my pattern paper. And I'm going to be labeling it zip allowance. I've also gone ahead to mark my shoulder line. The next thing to do is to take my chest line, which is my bust measurement, divided by 6 plus 1.5. That will give me 8 inches. Then I'll go ahead to take my waistline, which is 16 inches, and then the full length of my blouse, which is 20 inches. There's no need for my under bust and my bust point for the back part. I'll go ahead and connect all the lines, just rule a line across all the points, sorry, like so. I'll also label my line. So this is my chest line, this is my waistline, and this is my blouse length. Now on my shoulder line, I'm also going to be taking my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which will give me 7.5. I'll do the same on my chest line to get my armhole line. I'll use my ruler to connect the points from my shoulder line to my chest line. Now on my chest line, I'm going to be inserting my bust circumference divided by 4, which is 9.25. I'll mark a point there. Now I'm going to take my neck measurement for the back. As usual, you're going to be using the same neck width as the front, which is 3 inches. But for the depth, I'm going to be using 1.5 inch. I'll use my curve just to give it a nice curve. And that'll be all for the neckline of the back. I'm also going to get my shoulder slope by coming down by 1 inch and sloping it into the neckline like so. Now to get my armhole curve, I'm going to be taking the midpoint of my armhole line just like this. I'll go in by 0.5 inch and then I'll connect the 3 points together. Now you're going to be taking your bust span measurement, which is 4 inches. I'm just marking 4 inches, and then I'm going to use a ruler to connect the lines together, the dots together, sorry. Now I'm going to take my dart, and that's on my waistline. I'll go out by 0.5 inch on both sides of the line, and then I'm going to connect it using my ruler to the chest line like so. I'm also going to connect the 0.5 inch from the waistline down to the blouse length, just like this. And that's my dart for the back. The next step is to insert my body measurement. So that's already my bust point. I'm going to be adding 1.5 inches for my seam allowance. Then for the waistline, I'll take my measurement. I'm going to add what I've removed for the dart, and I'm also going to add 1.5 inch for my seam allowance. Then for my full length, I'm going to take my hip line, and then I'll add my allowance, and then I'll connect the 3 points together. Now, after putting my body measurement, I'm just going to be taking the yoke for the front, just so I can get the accurate shoulder measurement for the back. So I'm going to be marking exactly what I marked for the front. I'm going to be marking it for the back, just like so. And then I'm going to be using my cuff to connect it to my armhole line. Remember, I came up by 1 inch by the side of the front part of this blouse. I'm going to be doing the same for the back part, just so they'll match. This is me coming up by 1 inch and then just connecting it to the full length, just to remove any sharp edges. I'll go ahead and trace this out following the lines that I've made. So after trimming this out, this is what I have. There's no need to remove the dart leg because this doesn't have a yoke. So this is like a complete back bodice. So I'm just going to be marking the point where the dart starts on the actual fabric and taking in the dart leg. So there's no need to cut the dart part out, just like you did in front. So after cutting all my patterns, that's what the back looks like, and this is what the front looks like. In my next video, I'll be showing you how to cut and join the pieces together to achieve the top. Thank you.